Okay, World Cup preview done. World Cup group stage done. World Cup round of 16 done. And now it's time to look at what happened in the World Cup quarterfinals and give my prediction about the semi-finals, predictions of the semi-finals as we head towards the last week of the World Cup. Today is the 12th of December. The World Cup ends in 6 days. Tomorrow we have the Argentina-Croatia game, and then after that on Wednesday we have the France against Morocco game. So the World Cup, which we have waited for 4 years, is nearly over. And so without wasting any more time, let's just look at what happened and what is expected to come next in this competition that we all love, or at least that I used to love. And I'll get into why in a second. So the first game, the Netherlands against Argentina. I had Argentina to win, and as we'll see for each of my previews of the quarterfinals and what actually happened, I kind of have a 50% record coming through. I got 50% of the things right, but I'm not too proud of that. It was crazy. It was definitely a crazy quarterfinals, one of the craziest quarterfinals I've ever seen in my life in any competition. But once again, that is what makes things interesting. If we knew exactly what would happen, as I said on my round of 16 preview, then there would be no point of watching the World Cup. These surprises are what make this competition so great and so worthwhile watching. Again, going back to the Netherlands against Argentina game, I had Argentina to win. They got the job done, but they had to go to penalties. It wasn't pretty by any means. It was a hard fought battle, and Argentina did win. They didn't do it too convincing win, but they didn't do it in a convincing manner, I'd say. I'm gonna give a massive shout out to the Netherlands because they did their thing. They were fantastic for the whole tournament. Louis van Gaal came through and set this team up. Excellently. When you look at where the Netherlands have been since the 2014 World Cup, they've not been in a good place internationally. 2018 World Cup, they were a no-show. The Euros, they weren't that good, although the team on paper looked decent. So for them to get to the quarterfinals now in this World Cup and to get knocked out by Argentina, a team that's being led by Lionel Messi, and to push them to the very last few minutes of the game, all the way up to the penalties, just shows how well this Netherlands team has set up. Their defense throughout the tournament has been one of the best defenses in the whole thing. Going forward, they really impressed me. Guys like Gakpo, guys like Depay, who came through at times. Of course, it should have been a lot better in the game against Argentina to really, bail them out, if you can even say that. It should have been a lot better, but they did their thing. It just get them to where they ended up leaving the competition at. But overall, this is a team with a lot of potential. I don't think this is the end of the Netherlands, at least in this Louis van Gaal era. And I really want to see what they're going to be able to produce in the Euros and how they build upon heading towards the Euros, because the Netherlands, they always have a lot of young talent, especially now. A lot of players that could have made the squad, but that didn't. It'll be very interesting to see where this team is in the next year. And then regarding Argentina, again, they played well, not very convincingly. However, we'll get into Argentina again in a second when we do the preview for Croatia. Overall, again, I'm not going to criticize a team too much that got the job done. They are through, they are in the semi-finals, and Lionel Messi is closer and closer to getting the World Cup that many fans wish he has. Then we move on to the Croatia against Brazil game, and this is a game that hits more personally because I was definitely one of, if not the biggest supporter for Brazil, especially considering the fact that I'm not actually Brazilian. I really wanted this team to do well. I always want Brazil to do well. I'll always back Brazil in every single international tournament. I think how can you not back Brazil? On paper, they are always one of the best teams. And coming towards the tournament, they're performing very, very well. When you look at the round of 16 as well, you can begin to understand why I was so confident. But it was definitely me overrating how well Brazil played against Korea, a team that underperformed, and me underrating how solid this Croatia team has been. I remember my last video, I said that the Croatia team had a defense that hadn't been convincing for the whole tournament, and that was a massive lie. That was probably one of the worst takes I've had so far in the channel. Croatia's defense has looked good, and they managed to stop this Brazil attack, and that was my biggest if. Um, the fact that the Brazil attack were going to overpower the Croatian defense, and to be fair to them, at the end they did. Neymar did get the goal to get them through, but a moment of at least a lapse of concentration there for the Brazilian team towards the last few seconds of the game let them down, and they ended up falling short to Croatia in the last few minutes of the game. Then when it comes to penalties, the best players not stepping up for Brazil really was the nail in the coffin for them. I'm not going to criticize Neymar for not taking a penalty because of how well he played throughout the game, how much he did to even get the team ahead in the first place. However, you can't look back at the penalties that took place in this game, in the penalty knockouts, and say and not have I'll put it this way, and not at least have something to say. The best players in the team should have stepped up to take the penalties. I don't know why this was even a debate. You're putting a player like Rodrigo, who is not as experienced in his career overall, let alone internationally, for him to step up in such a massive moment for Brazil. It was kind of unfair. I thought that a player like Casemiro, a player like Marquinhos, Thiago Silva, Neymar, the established stars within the team should have stepped up first, just to breathe a bit of confidence into the team, because Rodrigo missed the first one, and then everyone else that went after him already knew that they were fighting against the tie, and that's never where you want to be in a penalty shootout. And it was really a shame, because in terms of potential, Brazil had the biggest potential in the whole tournament. I can't lie, I was definitely sad that Brazil were knocked out, especially so early. If Brazil lost in the final, I would have still been sad, but for them to be knocked out now in the quarterfinals in the way that they did, when they were ahead in the last few seconds, in the last few minutes of the game, it's heartbreaking. It's truly heartbreaking. But we'll move on. I have to wait for another 4 years for the next World Cup to see this Brazilian team back once again, try and vindicate themselves and try to win that 6th World Cup title. But yeah, definitely a sad moment, and we'll wait for 4 years to see this Brazilian team back at it. But moving on, we'll go to the England against France game. France got the job done, as I predicted. But yet again, predictions are predictions. I'm not going to take too much credit on those predictions, considering the fact that I had a 50% record on these predictions anyways. But just to say about the game, that things didn't happen the way I thought they were going to happen. And before I even talk about what actually happened in the game, I want to talk about Southgate for a second. Jokingly with my friends, I called Southgate a serial loser, but that was generally just a joke, because Southgate has done a great job within this team. He's built this new culture within the England team. He's gone England in every competition that he goes with them into the latter stages of the competition. 2018 World Cup semi-finals, 2020 Euros to the finals, and 2022 World Cup all the way to the quarterfinals, where they eventually fell short to a team of the dimension of France, and in a game where it could have really went into extra time if Kane hadn't missed the penalty. So it was a very, very close game. And even just beyond that, England had a bunch of chances. They played good football. But it is about time that you at least consider. I think that the FA should at least consider whether Southgate should step down from the managerial role or not. And, as I said, calling him a serial loser was a bit of a joke. But now, speaking truthfully, honestly, what's the point, but at some point you have to win those titles. And if Southgate hasn't been able to do that, then you might as well let someone else in. I understand if they were to give Southgate into the next tournament, into the next Euro, but I think that after that, if he doesn't win, he needs to go. It would then be 4 tournaments in a row of no silverware for England. A nation with fans that are starving for that international glory. who came up, who are always close, always with the talent within the team. So if it doesn't work out in the next Euros, Southgate needs to step down. Next Euros, if he stays, at least if Southgate stays, next Euros is definitely, it has to be the last chance for him. And then you move on to the, now move on to the actually talking about the game and what actually happened within the game. And England surprised me. I thought that Southgate was going to set up defensively and try to hit France on the counter. And although they did that at times during the game, most of the time, when you look at the chances they had, look at some of the highlights of the game, and even during the game, look at the stats, England played very good football, and it just came down to them not being able to finish in front of goal. And as I said before the preview, France probably have the best, at least on paper, the best defense in the tournament. You then can talk about the Netherlands and Morocco and how well they've been defensively throughout the whole tournament. But France are definitely up there as one of those teams with the best defensive records and defensive teams. Probably not the best defensive record, but one of the best defensive teams in the whole competition. So I think that's what it really came down to. England couldn't finish their chances, and then of course the penalty with Harry Kane at the end, where Harry Kane couldn't finish it. It was a shame. It was truly a shame, and you had all these England fans criticizing. I'm not trying to get into Harry Kane because players obviously miss, but that's kind of the point I'm trying to get to. When, the players that missed last year and the penalties, Sancho, Saka, and Rashford, and you look at the scrutiny that they got, the criticism that they got, and now Kane had the opportunity to send England through to the knockout stage, and the scrutiny and the criticism is not quite there. And it's quite interesting to try and understand why that is. But leaving that game alone, we'll get into the semi-finals in a second, and we'll talk about France more then. You move on to the game of Morocco against Portugal, and Morocco is surprising everyone. The fact that Morocco are even in the semi-finals, I think every Moroccan fan right now is proud of this team. Even if they were to be knocked out in the semi-finals against France, every fan is proud of this team, proud of what they achieved. And similarly, of what I said about Southgate, I said the same thing about Fernand Sancho. It's something that I said before the tournament even started. And to be fair, Sancho already stepped down, and it just gets to a point where enough is enough. Either you get the team through the hump, or we try and find someone else to try and get the job done. And that's what happened. Again, I'm not trying to discredit Morocco by talking about Portugal. It's just, Portugal being the favorites coming into this game and how much they underperformed. I do have to talk about them for a bit, and how there definitely needs to be change within the Portugal national team and the Portugal Footballing Association. But yeah, props to Morocco. They did well. They definitely deserve to be where they are, and we'll see what they are able to do moving on. And then you talk about the semi-finals, and I'll probably drop a more in-depth video on each of the four teams as we head towards, the last. We're already in the last week. we're already in the last week of the World Cup, but probably a more in-depth video on each of the teams and how they will do. So I'll just briefly give my predictions because I don't want to make this video too long. Argentina against Croatia. I'm going for Argentina win. And France against Morocco. I'm going for France win. Boohoo! I'm going for the quote unquote favorite teams on paper. But that's, if I'm giving a prediction, I have to give an objective prediction. I think that the harder game is going to be the Argentina against Croatia game. I think Argentina are really going to struggle, not only because this Croatian defense has been absolutely solid for the whole tournament, but this Croatian midfield at the moment is probably the best midfield of the last four. It has been the best midfield of all the 32 teams that joined the competition. I think they will take over the Argentinian midfield, and it will come down to Argentina taking their chances whenever they get them and being as defensively sound as they can be at the back. And then with France, it will be about how they break down this Moroccan defense that has been fantastic for the whole tournament. Really and truly, that's exactly it. How they'll be able to break down this defense. But once again, just quickly, Argentina against Croatia. I'm going for Argentina to win this game. But Argentina are definitely going to struggle. And then France against Morocco. I'm going for France to win this game, but this France attack, Giroud, Mbappe, Dembele, and the underrated player that is Griezmann, and that he has been for the whole World Cup so far. Griezmann has been one of France's best players and most influential players. You will definitely see how these four are able to break down this Moroccan defense, who've been the most impressive team in the whole tournament. And if you're talking about pound for pound, or at least pound for pound, the best defense in the tournament. But that's it for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching the video to the end. If you've liked more content like this, subscribe to the channel, because as I say at the end of every video, this is just the beginning of something special.